Hi guys, I'm Carrie Hatt with Culture by Choice. Many of you have already met me face to face, but if you haven't before, welcome and thank you for joining me today. I'd like to take just a few moments today to talk a little bit about what we're all experiencing across the board with this COVID-19 outbreak. Not only what we're experiencing as individuals, but what we're also experiencing as a nation, as a world, but more specifically as businesses and organizations. And I have some things up today that I'm going to kind of try to follow a little bit so that I can stay on point as I'm talking to you guys today, because it's an emotional time. And we can certainly let emotions get the best of us and stress over things that maybe we don't have control over. And so I'm going to use some of these things that I have hanging up today as guidelines in what Culture by Choice feels are important things to remind you guys of as we navigate through this as a whole. So one of the things many of our businesses that we work with, many of our clients who work with us are experiencing right now is how do they maintain a positive culture through situations like this. As businesses, during normal times, we have stressors. When you add in something like COVID-19, an added stressor of that makes that feeling grow exponentially, right? So we feel out of control many times. So how do we survive? But better yet, how do we actually thrive on the other side of this? So as leaders, we need to remember our shared humanity and our connection with one another. In order to thrive through this, we need to be a thriving culture to begin with. And thriving cultures are ones that are based off of core values and key principles. And as trouble brews, if you don't follow those key values and those principles that are built into your culture, we start to make decisions based off of the elements of crisis rather than the purpose for which our organization exists in the first place. So as we begin to navigate this COVID-19 situation, there's really no doubt that the current circumstances and the current conditions are going to color how we respond, but we must make certain that what we do stays true to our core principles and our key values that we have, right, within our organizations. So we need to pause for a moment here and we need to ask ourselves, how do we want to lead? Because our people are going to mirror our responses that we have to this, okay? It's not a time for us to abandon our current cultures that we have and just throw them away, because it's really more of a time for us to show the world how our cultures can help our organizations not just survive, but actually thrive on the other side of this, okay? Many leaders are individuals who are very decisive and action-oriented, but the people that they're leading are much more focused on stability, on consistency, and many times just getting through the day by day circumstances, right? And so we as leaders need to communicate in times like this in ways that are actually going to connect to our people, okay? We need to be communicating in ways that they understand, that they can connect with us, and even though it's very important for us to be decisive and for us to be in control, because in order to move our businesses forward through this and survive through this, we need to be able to do that. It's just as important, actually it's imperative, that we are capable of showing our people compassion as well. So the lives of everyday people right now has been completely flipped upside down. What they rely on, what they've counted on, what they've worked so hard to build is in jeopardy. And we need to acknowledge that. I know many of us are feeling the same thing. And what those individuals who are working for us need more than anything right now is for us to communicate to them that everything's going to be okay. Things might get worse before they get better, but we will come out on top of this, right? We will come out on the other side. And we need to communicate that to them, because right now all they're hearing is panic. Okay? So every single company that we currently work with has values in place that are very people focused. And we need to remember that, because we have tendencies during times of crisis to allow our biological responses to take over. And our biological responses tell us we need to survive. And when we let them control our decision-making process, we tend to make very selfish decisions. We make decisions that are going to help us as individuals survive a situation, and we tend to throw out our key principles and our core values when in reality, that's what we should be leaning into, okay? So it's imperative that we as leaders reinforce those core values, those key principles, because if we do that as the crisis subsides, we're going to be positioned in order to come out on the other side. We're going to be able to get back to business at hand, because this will subside. The secret to a thriving organization, especially during a crisis like this, is to have a value-based culture, which is what we call a legacy culture. Okay? Legacy cultures are driven organizations, and they will come out on the other side of this crisis just like they have in any other crisis that they've faced, because they're ready for them. And they don't ever give up on who they're supposed to be. Okay? They don't forget that. They continue to operate based off of their values and their principles. They never shift into a survival-only mode. Okay? If we do that, we're going to shift the entire face of our organization, and we're going to lose that culture. So we need to be aware of that. Okay? So legacy cultures stay in the moment. They operate from those core values and those key principles, and they know that their responses are going to impact the people that work for them, work with them, and the people that they serve. And so in this moment, we need to reflect on who we are as individuals and how we tend to respond to things that are stressful situations, because we all have normal ways that we respond in stress. And so we need to be aware of that and be aware of whether or not how we would normally respond, whether or not it truly is the right way to respond in this situation. So again, I'm challenging you to lean back into those core values, those core principles that set your cultures aside and make you the organizations that you are. And I challenge us as leaders to really pause and take a look at who we are and ask ourselves, how do we want to lead our people through this? Okay? So please, pause for a moment, take some deep breaths. We're going to get through this. Thank you for joining me today. We will produce some more videos. It may be me, maybe some of my partners with Culture by Choice. But thank you again for joining us, and we'll talk with you all soon.